This is an old one, but a good one on the importance of being vigilant, being on guard, and doing your research ahead of time before doing business with your local dealership. This is about 3 car dealerships in New York, 2 Honda dealerships, and 1 Acura dealership scamming their customers. The good news is they got caught and had to pay a settlement worth over $13 million. The company, Paragon Motors, ran the Honda dealerships in White Plains and the Acura dealership in Queens. They had to reach a settlement to pay restitution for charging their customers hidden fees, known as jamming, according to the Attorney General. Here's how it worked. The Paragon dealerships used deceptive sales tactics to charge customers for credit repair services and other after-sale items without the customer's knowledge or by claiming that the services were free, according to officials. So here's what they did. The company had an arrangement with another company in New York that sold unlawful credit repair and identity theft prevention services to car dealerships, and then Paragon would buy those services and then sell those contracts at a higher price to their customers. And you guessed it, those transactions were illegal because state and federal laws prohibit the sale of upfront fees for services that promise to help customers restore or improve their credit. So, if a dealership says we can help you improve your credit, that's a big red flag. And oh, by the way, the company that Paragon was doing business with to sell those services, they were shut down as a result of the investigation. It turns out Paragon allegedly sold its fraudulent services to about 15,000 customers during a 4-year period. The unlawful sale of those items sometimes tacked on more than $2,000 in hidden fees for the sale or lease price of a single vehicle. Paragon at the time claimed to be the largest combined Honda dealership in the nation. They had other dealerships as well. They had to pay back $6 million in a restitution fund to be distributed to the company's consumers with those contracts. Also, each of those 15,000 customers received a measly $500 settlement card. And get this, that card could be applied to the purchase or lease of a vehicle or a number of services or accessories from Paragon. The company also agreed to pay over $300,000 in penalties, costs, and fees to the state, according to New York officials. My disclaimer I like to put out here is that not all dealerships are bad. Sometimes you have a bad apple running a dealership or a few bad apples, and that really messes it up for everybody. But do your research ahead of time. Be vigilant. Be on guard. Talk to people in your area who have done business and find out what it's really like there. And be aware of these red flags. There are countless examples of this happening all over the country. I wish this was an isolated situation, but it happens. I have 2 other examples of dealerships scamming their customers. Again, this is 1 or 2 people screwing it up for all of us, but here they are. One involves a Ford dealership, the other one a Kia dealership. Here are those stories. This is a story about an ex-Ford dealer who was sentenced for fraud out of Michigan. This is about owner and manager Tony Nielsen, who ran the Discovery Ford dealership in Michigan. He confessed to defrauding hundreds of customers of more than $300,000 through an extended warranty scam and failure to pay off loans on their trade-ins. And yes, he pleaded no contest to multiple counts of larceny and had to serve time. And he also had to pay back that $300,000 that he stole from customers and another $78,000 to Universal Warranty, the insurance company that covered the extended warranties that he was pretending to sell the customers. So here's how it worked, and here's why you need to be on guard and do your research on the dealerships that you do business with. Authorities say this guy began keeping customers' payments for the extended warranties without buying the policies and failing to pay off the outstanding loans on the trade-ins that the people were bringing in to buy the new cars. This so he could pay off his own creditors' bills when his business began to falter. And this dealership that he ran also failed to forward customers' payments for the gap insurance to cover the difference between the value of the car totaled in an accident and the amount owed on a new car. This guy was a sleazeball. And just so you know, it doesn't exist anymore. At the time, he owned and operated this Discovery Ford in Michigan. It has a new name, a new owner, and he is no longer in the business. So how did this all come about? How was he discovered to be such a piece of crap? Well, the criminal case was the outcome of a very complicated, year-long investigation by the state police that included repeat interviews with more than 400 people. Investigators also scrutinized reams of financial documents to come to this conclusion. This investigation began when police were contacted by a single customer who had taken their vehicle to another Ford dealership for service and found out the car was never registered for the extended warranty they paid for. So they found the dealership had failed to forward money paid by the customer for the warranties. In many cases, that payment on average was about $2,000. You can kind of imagine what this meant for the customer when they realized this. Many say it ruined their credit ratings, and at the time, it ruined their lives. Now, ruin their lives sounds like an extreme statement, but the consequences for some included garnished paychecks, daily calls from creditors, and the inability to borrow money in the future, all because they were innocent victims of a crime. One victim here says, "He robbed us of our credit worthiness. He robbed us of our life. Our creditors, they were hounding us all the time." The stories from the victims get even worse. Here's one. One person who was 5 months pregnant at the time of buying the vehicle. They had 4 kids. They were on their 5th pregnancy. They were looking for a minivan because they needed more seats for their growing family. So within 2 weeks, this lady got a letter from the credit union that had a lien on the smaller car that she had traded in. She was past due in the payment for a car she no longer owned. So she called Discovery Ford, and they told her the check's in the mail. It wasn't. It gets worse. After a lot of back and forth, none of which got the loan paid or satisfied the credit union, she and her husband, his name was on the loan too, both of them got sued. And eventually the credit union won a default judgment against her because she missed a court date. Remember, she was 5 months pregnant at the time. And then later her paychecks were being garnished. And then on the very day she goes into the hospital to have her son, she finds out through the news that Discovery Ford was being criminally investigated. I know this sounds like an extreme case of fraud by a local dealership, but it does happen. I'm getting feedback and comments from others who are saying they've been scammed and lied to before. In fact, here's the original story that I ran about a Kia dealership that was lying to customers that really sparked all this in the first place. There's a dealership, or was a dealership, in Concord, New Hampshire, where the president of the dealership, who recently was awarded the Automotive News 40 Under 40 award just a few years ago, now has to pay $1.25 million in a deceptive practices settlement. This guy now has to reimburse the Attorney General's $49,000 in legal fees, hire an independent compliance monitor to review and report on its business practices for the next 5 years, record audio and video of financing discussions between employees and customers, pay restitution to 2 different customers who were victims of deceptive practices, implement staff training program to educate them on state consumer protection laws. This is pretty bad. So the Consumer Protection and Antitrust Bureau was investigating this guy based on a high volume of consumer complaints filed between 2019 and 2021. By the way, this guy won that 40 under 40 in 2018. The Bureau found dealership employees, quote, persuaded customers into purchasing vehicles they could not afford using deceptive sales practices, falsely inflating consumer income information on loan applications, and even forged the signature of a customer on a loan paperwork. So I'm not saying that this happens a lot or at all besides this one case right here, but be aware that these are scams in a way that dealerships are kind of working around people who can't afford or who are not actually qualified to buy a car. They're doing this. He did this. And now he's got to pay for it. So here's what happened. According to the Attorney General, the dealership enrolled customers with poor scores in a credit repair or credit rehabilitation effort known as the program. That's what they called it. It was a 6-month financing program used when a customer told that dealership they couldn't afford the payment terms. Customers were informed they qualified for this program, and if they paid their car loan on time for 6 months, their credit score would improve and the terms could be refinanced. But it was nothing more than a sales pitch, empty promises not affiliated or endorsed by any bank, despite the dealership saying that it was, so they flat out lied. Instead, customers were left with loans that they were unable to pay for. In addition, this guy at the dealership, the president of his dealership, was inflating the incomes of the potential borrowers on their loan applications to increase their approval chances with the lenders. If a borrower was denied funding, the dealership would often resubmit their application with a higher monthly income than the customer actually had in order to win approval. This investigation actually found one instance of a loan document with a forged customer signature. The dealership employee there who forged that signature also enrolled that customer in insurance products they previously had refused. So this president of this dealership was recognized prior to this incident being discovered for doing really well as a car salesman or a car manager of this dealership. He had a previously monthly sales number of 25 vehicles per month. He grew those sales to 137 units a month within 5 months of being there. So that's why he got this award of being one of the best 40 under 40 automotive dealerships. No surprise here, the dealership representative refused any comment when attempted to be reached by phone about this situation. Either way, it is just one example of how dealerships can be a little shady, a little sketchy, working the system to sell you a car that you can't afford. So be firm. If you can't afford the payments, don't listen to what they're saying with, hey, we can put you in a new program to help work out these payments. If you do well, we'll make sure things work out for you in the long run. But in the meantime, just sign this right here. We'll get you going. We'll sell you a car. And yeah, your payments might be a little high right now, but you'll be able to afford it later. Just don't believe that crap. And now this guy has to pay over $1 million in this settlement because he was enrolling deceptive practices to sell people cars. Just not worth it. Now, if you have any similar experiences and you'd like to share that with us, please leave it in the comment section below. We need to be educated. We need to be on guard. Not all dealerships are bad. There's a few bad apples out there who are running dealerships. They will be caught eventually, but we need to be educated and be smart and look out for each other. Leave those comments below this video. Until next time, I'm Dave. Thanks for watching. Adios.
Thanks for watching. Please click subscribe and give us a thumbs up. See you next time.